This is David Ross, and welcome again to the Lions Roar podcast. This one's going to go up public. I want people to listen to this. I want all kinds of people to listen to this. Again, I'm always sort of responding to things that are going on around me at the current time. It's not a surprise that when you do things like I do and talk about truth and raise questions about what people, value so much. I've said before, people treat martial arts like religion, treat it like politics. A lot of people have that jingoistic, like kung fu, right or wrong kind of thing. We've talked about this a lot. So it's not surprising that people, have negative reaction. It's also amazing sometimes when you watch people engage in what should be debates or discussions. Again, people disagree, and sometimes disagreement is the best thing that can happen in an internet forum or chat room, because people can discuss things and they can clarify points and they can show different, points of view. But a lot of times what happens is, and we can joke about it, but the reality is sometimes people just can't follow a basic argument. They're so black and white. They have such a lack of critical thinking skills. Or they just want you to say, like, Kung Fu is great, it's perfect, there's nothing wrong with Kung Fu, and otherwise you're a hater and, you're evil and you don't know what you're talking about. So you see people have some very violent reactions, because especially on my Real Kung Fu group on Facebook, I'll say to somebody, okay, well, prove that. Well, that's wrong. Well, let me give you an example of why it's wrong. Do you have any evidence for what you said? And then suddenly it becomes, the ad hominem attack, personal. It is astounding the lengths to which some people will go to try to undermine the messenger because they don't like the message. And a great example of this, I run that group, Real Kung Fu, on Facebook, Real Kung Fu application. And people will apply for membership. I used to just basically admit everybody. Now I have some questions because I'm trying to filter out the crazy. But I used to invite people, and they would go on, the very first thing they would post sometimes would be a picture of them without a shirt on, holding nunchucks, and they would put something like master, Kung Fu master, or they would put something like them, swinging from a rope from a tree, or a backflip on their bed. I'm not even making any of this stuff up. But the most recently one, is or people go like Kung Fu. Doesn't mean anything. It doesn't contribute to the group. The most recent one was, it's a Kung Fu group, Real Kung Fu application. Somebody got it, they put black belt in big all caps and a picture of a woman in a karate gi doing karate. And I said, forgive me, I have to comment on this. I just don't understand it. It's irrational, it's illogical, it's meaningless. What goes through somebody's mind? So I went on there, and I actually did say, I know in today's politically correct environment, we're not supposed to use the term retarded, but I'm not talking about people with disabilities. Why would you post black belt and a picture of somebody in a karate gi doing a karate pose in a Kung Fu group? Why would you do it as your very first post? It's retarded, and I don't mean that as an attack on people with disabilities. Now, of course, somebody decided to latch onto that and said, you're attacking people with disabilities. And what's interesting is a member of the group who actually identified themselves as having a form of autism said, no, not at all. I use that term. There's clearly a difference between pointing out crazy, stupid, irrational stuff on the internet and being, biased. Now, is it a shock that the person that decided they were going to make a big deal and say that I was an evil person who attacked people with disabilities was someone who just a day before had sent me a private message asking for free access to not only this podcast, but also all the Teachable pages? They said, well, I have 1 million followers. It's probably not true. I didn't even bother to look into it. But you want to get free access to my stuff, and I give plenty of free stuff. On the Real Kung Fu group, I give tons of free stuff. I put it on my timeline. There's tons of free stuff out there, but I also have stuff that you have to pay for. No apologies. You want me to apologize for that? It's not going to happen. I'm not Joe Biden talking about busing. Some of my material you have to pay for. I spent my entire life developing this material. I paid a lot of money to get this material. I traveled all over the world to do this material. If you want it, and again, $10 a month, $5 a month for the podcast. So, is it a coincidence? Is it unrelated? Is there no correlation between the fact that I said no to this person and the next day they decided to take something that was written in black and white? We're not talking about disabilities. And suddenly try to make a federal case out of it? Do you really think it's just random? Do you really think that it's a coincidence also that when you look up this person on the internet, they're constantly attacking people with schools, saying they're mean and they argue, and that this person doesn't have a school? Jealousy is a green-eyed monster, quoted Shakespeare. Let's just call it for what it is. Now, another thing I'd like to mention, I don't go into it very often, is don't ever think there isn't other stuff going on beneath the surface. My father happens to be Jewish. Should have nothing to do with anything we ever talk about on this podcast in any group or anything. Most people assume I am Jewish. I am not, but most people assume I am. I have experienced anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish feelings my entire life to varying degrees. But for example, we had one of those guys who could not keep up with a discussion. And we were actually pretty patient. I mean, we went on for something like 37 responses. And everyone in the Real Kung Fu group was contradicting this person, but contradicting them with logical arguments. And they started getting real hostile. And then, of course, they sent me a personal message calling me a Jew Zionist bastard, blah, 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 blah. Yes. So, remember, if you go on an internet forum and somebody speaks ill about someone, don't assume that everything they're telling you is the pure and honest truth. I'm arguably Jewish, I guess, because my father is Jewish, and somebody felt that being a Zionist rat bastard Jew was relevant to a discussion about martial arts. Somebody wants to say that I'm biased against disabled people because I use the term retarded, even though in the post I stated I'm not talking about people with disabilities. I'm talking about somebody that joins a Kung Fu group and the very first thing they post is black belt, picture of woman doing knife hands. That's retarded. One of my friends suggested that it is retarded. Retarded meaning backwards, being, not mentally retarded, which would be people with disabilities, but it's just a retarded statement. It's just backward and serves no purpose. Do you think it's a coincidence that a lot of MMA people went after me when me, the Kung Fu guy, showed up at events with fighters and the fighters won? Nowadays, not jumping into the guard, backing up and making somebody stand up is a part of MMA, but with Mark Tripp, we developed this strategy in 1997. We have a video of it, and maybe I'll post it soon. I'm in the process of converting VHS tapes into digital. And everybody said, you're a coward because you don't jump into the guard. No, I'm not a coward for not putting my head in the lion's mouth. I'm not a coward for using proper strategy and fighting you where I'm strongest, not where you're strongest. Sun Tzu said local superiority, right? The art of war. You have 100 men and I have 10 men. I'm not going to take my 10 men and attack your 100 men. I'm going to take my 10 men and attack you when you're divided up into 5 men each, or stuff of that sort. But made me very unpopular. I run a school. I've had people that trained with me, didn't pay their bills, weren't allowed to train anymore because they didn't train their bills, and I'm a bad guy for doing that. I've had fighters that, quote unquote, I held back. No, they weren't ready to go pro. They weren't ready for title shots. The most infamous example of this was, I had a guy doing MMA. He was a skilled guy. He had good skills. But when I'm developing an amateur fighter, what I want to do is give you increasingly progressive resistance. In other words, better skilled guys, better skilled guys. And certainly before I put you up for a title shot or I turn you pro, I want to see one fight where things don't go well. You try to take, if you're a wrestler, you try to take the guy down and he can't do it. He's a better wrestler. Randy Couture told us something. I went to train with Team Quest at one point, and he said that when he fought Kevin Randleman from Hammer House, he said, my strength is wrestling, but Randleman's a bigger, stronger, better wrestler. So I better learn how to use the guard, fight off my back. And that's exactly what happened in the fight. Whereas Randleman, when he got tired and Couture turned him over on his back, he was out of his element. So I want to see a fighter that I'm training have one bad day, a wrestler that gets taken down and has to fight off his back. Not necessarily even win the fight. That's really important. Not necessarily even win the fight, but rather hold it together. And ideally, at least make some modifications, changes during the fight to deal with the fact that the fight is not going well. Because once you turn pro, you don't grow. I don't know, other people may have different opinions. My opinion and experience has been, once you turn pro, however, whatever fighter you were when you turned pro, that's where you're going to stay. So I have held fighters back. I have held fighters back because I didn't think they were ready to make that next step. Also, fighting is a very dirty business, and title fights are often not about skill. They're about setting up big pay match. In other words, most of the time, if it's not my promotion and somebody calls me about a title fight, it's because the guy that they're matching us up against is the guy that they want to win. That person's been fighting on their promotion, maybe is the promoter's friend, sells a lot of tickets, attracts a lot of people to buy tickets, so they want to set up a title fight for them, and they're looking for somebody that will lose. Now, I'm happy to say that I have messed with that plan at least 3 times that I'm aware of. Went out of town, fought on another promotion, fought the promotion's fighter in a title fight and won. But generally speaking, title fights are difficult, are difficult situations. They're not as easy as you think they are. So I've held people back. So of course you hold people back, some people leave. You're a bad guy. Don't underestimate the conspiracy theory, right? There are people that think that we never were on the moon. There are people that think George Soros is running the world. Don't forget the anti-Semites of the world thinking that the Jews run everything. I have my own personal bank account of $10 million. That's why I'm sitting here. No, I mean, come on, let's be serious. I have seen some astounding conspiracy theories about how my fighters are not my fighters, and I never trained them, and they never really trained in my gym. Even when I produce video of them training in my gym. Because people will hold on desperately to what they want to believe, and people will have very violent reactions to people that challenge what they believe. So, I'm not new to this game. I've seen it over and over and over again for all the years. So, there's a new bunch of these, I'm going to just not safe for work, idiots, retards. I don't mean people with disabilities. These are people whose brains don't work, trying to create something out of nothing. What's interesting is that I have screen captures. Good, put up the screen captures, because in the screen captures it's going to say, I am not talking about disabled people. I am talking about somebody that puts up a stupid picture in my group. Why are you putting up a stupid picture? Somebody, the anti-Semite neo-Nazi, who sent me the Zionist message, claimed that they came to my gym and fought me. They claimed on my page, and we have screen captures of it, that they wanted to come to my gym. They had never been there. That was 5 months ago. I challenged this person not to a fight. I challenged them to produce some evidence that in the last 5 months, not that they've even fought me, but that they've even been in New York, because they're not from New York. Did you come here by plane? You can have plane tickets. Did you come here on train tickets? You drove here? Do you have any toll receipts? Let's call it what it is. You're a compulsive liar. And if you follow this person, you can find them lying all over the place. And of course, they're also a neo-Nazi. So, Be thankful I'm not calling out these people by names, but they know who they are. And you know what? I don't care, honestly. I don't have to prove to people that I've trained fighters. It's self-evident. There's hundreds of pictures, hundreds of videos. The people themselves have gone on. And that's the other thing also is, the reality is, in my group, Real Kung Fu, there's only two kinds of people. Those people that understand what the group is about and are getting something useful out of it. And those people that are there because they want their ego stroked and they want to be told that what they believe is the truth. They're not interested in the truth. They want to be told what they believe is the truth. And increasingly, I'm just going to start banning people that are there. I'm not even going to engage them. I try to engage them because sometimes people can be changed, and sometimes also even talking to them serves the purpose of educating the people that are there to be educated. But there are so many lowlives like this neo-Nazi scumbag. I warned you, not safe for work. Some of them are just going to get removed because you can't settle with these people. Listen, straw men too. Oh, he said he's the best. I challenge anybody to find a video, a post, an article where I said I am the best. Find one where I say I'm a great fighter. You won't find one of those either. I say consistently I was a very mediocre fighter. My entire business, project, school, whatever you want to call it, tradition is based upon the fact that I never talk about myself as a personal skill. I talk about, well, I know how to train people. And the evidence that I know how to train people is mountainous. Tons of videos of even regular people in classes doing doing technique correctly. People that have seen tremendous progress in their lives. Tons of fighters also, but that's not the only thing. So again, don't set up a straw man. I'm not going to defend a straw man. Screw you. I never said I was the best. Quite the opposite. If you said you fought me, produce some evidence. It's all bullshit. The last time I had a fight, traditional Chinese martial arts rules, no eye gouging, no biting, and no groin striking. I think you know about the gouging and the biting. But remember that Chinese are Confucians, and the obligation to pass on the family line, so no groin striking, was probably, I think, 2003. So with some quick math, that's 16 years ago. At that time, there were 6 people in a locked room. 2 of them were me and the person I was fighting, 2 from their side, 2 from my side. 6 people in a locked room 16 years ago. I've seen over 20 people talk about that fight. Would it shock you if I told you that those 20 people were not in the room? Would it shock you if I told you that one of those people was the person that was supposed to be the referee and his wife wouldn't let him go to the fight because it's dangerous? People talk a lot. They talk a lot of nonsense. Just understand that on the internet, that people talk a lot of nonsense. Just understand that if somebody makes a claim, if they can't back it up, don't take it as truth. I'm very big on truth, and I will produce evidence, documents, and logical thought. And I'm sorry, I don't apologize for the fact that I'm educated. I don't apologize for the fact that I construct logical arguments. And I definitely don't apologize for crushing your castle that you built in the air. And if you don't like it, tough. I'm going to try to put on a more productive podcast a little bit later today, but I thought I would just stick this out here. Thank you all for tuning in.